From our studios at the corner of 8th and Walton in Bentonville, Arkansas, welcome to Saturday Morning Meeting, where we cover Walmart, Sam's Club, and the consumer product companies that are represented on the racks and shelves throughout the country and around the world. Welcome to our show. I'm Andy Shook, and our focus is on the insights, trends, and best practices to help you as a supplier grow your business with the world's largest retailer. Thank you for joining us, and coming up today, Derek Ridenauer will be talking with Teresa Warren of Store of the Community about the value of planning for both big and small supplier companies. And reviewing this week's headlines with me is Ken Simpson of Clorox. But first, the headlines. Earlier this week, Walmart announced that David Cheesewright, current head of Walmart Canada, will replace Doug McMillon as CEO of Walmart International. The announcement follows McMillon's appointment as CEO of Walmart Incorporated. Cheesewright is a 14-year Walmart veteran who began his Walmart career with Asda in the United Kingdom. He started his current role with Walmart Canada in 2011. Walmart has extended holiday savings this year with a number of post-Black Friday events. On December 9th, Walmart.com celebrated Green Monday, offering online shoppers savings on the top-selling Black Friday items. Now, a second savings event with significant price drops on many popular gift items took place Friday, December 13th. In 2013, Walmart redoubled its efforts to offer healthy foods and improve its fresh produce offerings, even offering a fresh produce satisfaction guarantee. But now Walmart is facing increased competition in the grocery sector. TBO.com reports that Dollar General is expanding its Dollar General Market brand, which offers discounted fresh groceries alongside its standard assortment of packaged foods and household items. In addition, the Boston Globe recently featured a story on a project called the Urban Food Initiative. Now, it is the brainchild of a former Trader Joe's executive who hopes to set up stores that sell prepared meals made from past sell-date groceries from other stores, and also sell items like milk and packaged vegetables that are near or at their expiration dates. Showrooming concerns may be so last year. UPI reports that in 2013, holiday shoppers instead engaged in web rooming. Now, researching products online and then going to the store to pick them up. In fact, a recent Harris poll showed that while 49% of respondents admitted to showrooming, 69% engaged in web rooming. Who benefits from the web rooming trend? Walmart. The poll has also showed that after web rooming, 24% of shoppers visited Walmart, followed by Target and Best Buy, both tied at 11%. Now check out Walmart and supplier news as it is reported each day on walmartnewsnow.com. I'd like to welcome my guest, Ken Simpson from Clorox. Ken, David Cheesewright, named President and CEO of Walmart International. What are your thoughts?
I've been working with Walmart International for P&G and then for Clorox for the last 16 years. Actually, I just switched over to the U.S. side of the business, but I think this is a welcome move by suppliers and Walmart International people.
Okay.
And I say that because working with him from a supplier point of view, he's collaborative, he's respectful of the suppliers, of course. And I think the suppliers, the suppliers have a good feeling about him, good opinion.
What kind of roles, what did he do in Walmart International? Cheesewright, David.
Yeah, well, I think the interesting thing there is if you look at the past CEOs of Walmart International, none of them had international experience before they came into that position, whether it was Bobby Martin or John Menzer or even Doug. But this guy has a lot of experience, 14 years of experience. And you think about the experience he has being the CEO of Asda, well, that's their largest country.
Right.
Canada's a big country. Acquisitions with Netto and also with Massmart, so he's had experience there. He's had a lot. He's had a lot of experience also with the e-commerce, even with their e-commerce business in China. So here's a guy that has considerable international experience coming into the role.
So you think it's a good move?
I think it's a good move, and I think Walmart International people also feel very good about him. And what they say to me is, say he's a good communicator. He's good with people. He's a good leader. He accomplishes goals. He has a lot of the same qualities that Doug has, except he has a lot more international experience coming into it.
So when we look at the international business at Walmart, it accounts for what, about 30%?
About 30, yeah.
So about 30%. But how does that work with profit and really kind of how that's generated, throughout the world? I mean, how important is that international business to Walmart? When you look at the total picture, Walmart Inc., you've got international, you've got Sam's Club, you've got Walmart US, .com. Where does international kind of fit into that whole picture?
Interestingly, international is in 26 countries, and they have more stores outside the United States than they have in the United States. They have over 6,000 stores outside the United States.
Wow.
And Walmart International is also bigger than their Sam's business, about 30%. But I think the interesting thing is that that's their growth engine, so they're growing.
Yeah, right.
But the profit, it's challenging because their profit margin is not as high outside the United States as it is in the United States.
So it's kind of like the same problem we have as suppliers. When we bring an item that has a lower margin but sells more.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
your mix.
Exactly.
They worry about the mix.
Exactly.
But that causes them they're trying to improve the profitability outside the U.S. They closed some stores recently.
Okay.
Of course, they're always working on efficiencies. But from a supplier point of view, we have to realize that in the U.S. it puts more pressure on margins, and they've got to generate the margin here because they're
to
not
make up for what they're not doing.
because that's
internationally.
diluting their overall margin.
So do you think his challenge is going to be to make that more profitable?
Absolutely.
And how, you kind of know international, so how do you think he's going to do that? I mean, what changes or things are going to affect internationally that he's going to go out and do?
I wouldn't think that he would make a big change versus what Doug has been doing. And
Okay.
Doug's been going down that trail with making international more efficient, moving to EDLP when they can and where it makes sense, because EDLP can bring more profitability from an efficiency point of view.
Okay, right.
For example, as part of that, closing stores that need to be closed. I see him. I don't see a big change in approach here. Or what
That's
they're
interesting.
doing.
You said EDLP because everybody assumes that what they do in the U.S. they do everywhere across the rest of the world, but they don't necessarily do EDLP in all the countries.
No, they don't. They don't. They I would say they have an aspiration, and they
Okay,
want to be able, because they believe, and as Doug will quickly say, that that's how you gain the shopper's trust is through EDLP. But they also have to face the reality of the market and the consumer. And is the consumer ready? Can they convince the consumer?
Right. And
they also have to deliver sales and profit. You have that.
Yeah.
You have that reality. So they want to be EDLP, and they've been successful in, like, I think Brazil's EDLP is going pretty well. Central America started out kind of rough, going much better.
Yeah.
But no, they're not EDLP everywhere outside the U.S. at this point.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about web rooming versus shop rooming. UPI reported this week. So showrooming is when someone goes into a store, looks at the items, and then goes and buys it online. But UPI is reporting that more people are going to be doing the opposite. They're going to be going online, shopping, and then they're going to come and buy it at the stores. And of course, who wins when they go to the stores?
Yeah, Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart does.
Yeah, so I think that's very interesting. It's a very good development for Walmart, because I think that when people are going into the stores and then looking to make the purchase online, Walmart is not first in line there. Amazon is. But when people go online and then go into the stores, that's to Walmart's advantage.
Yeah.
Walmart's the first choice, and they're also the most convenient choice in many instances. So this is
and
good.
then it's
Good for
also,
them.
it helps consumables. It kind of helps everything, right? Because if I'm going to go and buy that item that they were saying that they're buying, like clothing or items that normally you'd shop for online, you're going to go pick up groceries. You're going to get the milk. You're going to get some of the other things in the store as well. So I think that's also where Walmart's going to win with this, if they can get more people in their stores.
Absolutely. So it's good for them. So you do that. You're not going to have to pay any shipping charges if you
Right.
go pick it up at the store. It's convenient to go into to the Walmart store. Not everywhere, like in New York,
Right.
for example. No, but in
Right.
most places, that's Walmart's going to win big time in that with this trend. And what I read is that the millennials are much more inclined also to look online first and then go into the store. So it's a great development for Walmart to win.
I think it is. You know, it'll be really interesting to see if this season, with some of those changes, and you know, we talked a little bit about the holiday season in previous meetings, but if this is one of those trends that continues, and Walmart figures this out through their e-commerce site and through that, it'll be interesting to see, because Walmart's going to win it, and they're going to continue to win it. Yeah.
As they say, they're going to satisfy their customers' needs, no matter how they shop or where they shop.
That's right.
And they're working hard on it.
Ken, thanks so much for coming in today.
I enjoyed it. Thanks.
We'll be right back.
At Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art, we can help your business meetings get out of the box. Way out of the box. With refreshing views of the museum's 120-acre grounds, breathtaking architecture, spacious meeting and presentation venues, and top-notch catering from 11, our award-winning restaurant, not to mention more than 400 works of art by American masters. Your meeting at Crystal Bridges will be anything but in the box. Call us today and let our team of professional event planners arrange your next meeting at Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art.
Today's show has been sponsored in part by 8th and Walton, the premier destination for Walmart supplier education. 8th and Walton offers a variety of services including new supplier onboarding, scorecard optimization, and analysis and reporting. Visit 8thandwalton.com/services to learn more.
And welcome back to Saturday Morning Meeting, joined now by Teresa Warren, consultant with 8th and Walton, but more importantly, former Walmart associate kind of responsible for JBPs or joint business plans. So tell us a little bit about your history.
I worked for Walmart for about 30 years, spent some time in operations, some time, great deal of time in merchandising in many different areas, and 12 and a half years in international. And in my time in international, I was involved with a division that developed joint business plans. And we developed them, the concept of it, exactly how they would function. We developed and worked with the teams in different countries to develop joint business planning teams in each of the countries. And I partnered with some of the top multinational suppliers, some of the top largest ones around the world, to develop their joint business plans and also to grow their business internationally around the world.
There are a couple different types of JBPs that we wanted to talk about. There's the top level, executive level, which, as we've discussed, is a little more in depth and goes much deeper. But those are head-to-head, senior leadership coming together to develop that. Let's talk a little bit about that, and then I want to move on to the next one.
Okay. Of the different types of joint business plans, you've got your executive level joint business plans where there's an alignment with the senior leadership of both companies. And these were the ones that I'd worked with these big companies such as Kraft. And basically this is where the executives come together and they build synergies and they talk about where they want to grow for the future, not just for the current year, but 3 to 5 years down the road. And it gets into every single component of the business. And it starts with where you are today and putting those building blocks in place for where you want to be in the future.
And again, those are for the larger, bigger companies, for the most part, publicly traded companies. But let's just kind of change focus a little bit to those small to medium-sized companies that are probably watching this, who may have been getting direction from a buyer to go and develop a JBP and come back to them. Let's talk about the difference of that, because for many of these smaller companies, they're working transactionally. They're looking at that next purchase order, trying to get inventory and raw materials to fill that. So while their long-term outlook may be 6 months to a year, it really needs to be a little bit more than that, correct?
Yes, definitely. One of the challenges that small suppliers have is frequently when they're managing the business with Walmart, it's all about getting the sale and getting in there. Now, one of the things that suppliers can do is, first of all, when you first start working with Walmart, it's all about managing the day-to-day. But what you have to do is balance both of those. You need consistency in your day-to-day and your accuracy and how you're managing the business, but you need to also be thinking about where you want to go in the future. So if you want you have a goal that you want to grow to a certain level, you've got to have strategies and building blocks that are like milestones. And you put those in place and you develop those ideas, both internally within your company as well as with Walmart. And in order to do that, obviously, you have to know what's important to the buyer. So what are the strategies that are important to the buyer that the buyer wants to focus on to grow their business? If you understand what's important to the buyer, then you can also look at your company and what's important to your company.
And the key thing too about understanding what's important to the buyer, and I hear this a lot, is that I just get a buyer, get them trained, and then they get promoted and move on to something else. But to your point, that the same objectives, regardless of who the buyer is, regardless of how new they are, how seasoned they are, how long they've been on the desk, those priorities still should be consistent.
Yes, they should be consistent. Now, obviously, when a new buyer comes on, there's a learning curve. But yes, they're ultimately the buyer's communicating goals and objectives are coming from senior leadership down. It just works that way.
So what are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen suppliers make as they try to develop a JBP? Short-sighted?
A lot of times, they're looking at the day-to-day. And they're not thinking about where you want to go to the future. So it's very simple to sit there and say, okay, I had a rollback this year. I'm going to anniversary that rollback next year. You do need to figure out how you're going to anniversary those things. But anniversarying one thing with the same thing at the exact same time next year is not always the best practice, because what can happen is you're starting to deteriorate your price point. And you're also conditioning the customers
To wait for those deals.
to wait for those deals.
Which we
So-
see happen a lot with those high-low retailers that are out there.
Absolutely.
You condition those customers to wait for the deals.
Right. And so from a supplier's perspective, you've got to be on the cutting edge. You can't consistently do the same thing day in, day out that you did every year, year on year. You have to be flexible to change. A lot of times suppliers, when you start talking about joint business plans, that means that you have to be willing to be flexible. You have to be willing to make changes in your organization. You have to be willing to try new things. And you have to be willing to take a chance and go out there and do some things that maybe you wouldn't have thought of or considered doing in the past.
GigWalk is an on-demand mobile workforce that can collect data and do work at retail. Businesses use GigWalk for retail audits, merchandising, and much more. With 350,000 smartphone-enabled workers available on demand, you get unprecedented speed and coverage across the US, Canada, and the UK. And all work is reviewed for quality and accuracy. Visit gigwalk.com to learn more.
Today's show has been sponsored in part by 8th and Walton, the premier destination for Walmart supplier education. Since 2006, 8th and Walton's by suppliers for suppliers approach to education and services has helped thousands of supplier teams grow their business with Walmart. Visit 8thandwalton.com to learn more.
And that's difficult. I mean, if I'm a small supplier, trying to do something that is really out of the box, there's a lot of added cost to that. There's a lot of unknown variables. What do you tell those suppliers?
Well, I would sit down and first of all, do some brainstorming. Figure out what you can do. And do some brainstorming in your team and kind of talk about some of the ideas you've got with your buyer. Now, the thing to do, though, is don't wait till 30 days before the event or before where you want to try to make this impact. Walmart's working a year out.
Right.
They may not be talking to you as a supplier a year out and telling you what they're expecting, but as a supplier, you want to be in their ear. You want to be talking about what your ideas are to grow the business at least 6 to 9 months out, as far out as you possibly can. Once you get into that 90-day window, the buyer's already determined what they're going to do, and they've already got their plans in place. And it's much more difficult then to get your ideas in place. And a lot of times if you've got an idea and you don't quite have all the specifics worked out, just talking about that even with the buyer can oftentimes spur ideas of things that you can do, because it's showing that you have or you want to have a partnership with the buyer, and what's important to the buyer is important to you.
So really need to change the way small, medium suppliers think from being transactional, let me get the PO, let me plan on what we're going to do for the next 90 days, 6 months, to looking more strategically out as far as 3 years like some of the bigger companies are.
Absolutely. Innovation is another thing, is one thing that oftentimes companies within their own organization, there's not a strong communication flow. down to the Walmart person on exactly what are the upcoming innovations. So if you're trying to make sure that you've got something that you know in your company is coming up, or your company has something coming up, the sooner you get that knowledge to the Walmart buyer, the more likely they are to take that on. Now, Walmart, I know, will agree to do some confidentiality agreements and hold that confidential, but it's important that the buyer knows those things as far in advance as possible so that they can get on the cutting edge and be prepared to support those things. And you're going to be more likely to get their agreement to it if they know in advance. And the buyer can give you ideas too. When you're sitting down and you've got these ideas, bounce them off the buyer. The buyer's there to help you just like you're there to help the buyer. And it's about a true partnership. And as you're developing these strategies, you're developing the building blocks, you've also got to measure. You've got to put measurements in place so that you know when you've achieved what you wanted to achieve.
Now, do you see the small to medium suppliers making mistakes with their account managers here, that they are a salesperson? Which, having been around Walmart and been here for a number of years, I see it very differently from somebody who would call on a Target, or maybe that's a bad example, but a Kroger or some of the smaller stores, where it is truly a sales position. Here, to your point, I think it's much more strategic. Mm-hmm. It's much more partnership related, and it's not about going in and selling because it's all numbers based. And the JPP can certainly help with that. Am I right?
Oh, definitely. A lot of times, small suppliers, they get in, they get the item on the shelf, they're excited, they've got the orders, they're processing the orders, and they're so thrilled with that they're not paying attention to the metrics that are important to the buyer. And so if you want to become a partner with Walmart, you have to understand what's important to the buyer, and then you have to focus on having excellence in those areas. And that's the beginning of what opens the door for joint business plans. And you don't have to be a joint business planning supplier just to necessarily do a joint business plan. But you can put building blocks in place to actually move toward that level, to grow your business long term. And a lot of times, when we start talking about joint business planning and you want to be thinking at least 12 months in advance, there's one of the things, and this is definitely old-timey Walmart culture, something was known as, and a lot of times people hear this, they go, oh, okay, what in the world do you mean? There's something known as correction of errors. COE. And this is a term, yes, COE, correction of errors. And a lot of times people, when they first hear that, they think, well, this is a negative thing. It's not a negative thing. It was something that was started by Mr. Sam many, many years ago, the founder of Walmart. And he had the idea that as soon as you finished the month, you sat down and you documented and you brainstormed what were the successful things to manage the business. So what were the things that you did that were successful during that month? And what were the things that you could do differently? And then immediately, while that's still fresh in your mind, when you've ended that month, go on ahead and put together your thoughts for what you would do differently next year. Okay. And get out into the next level.
Well, we talked to Rand Waddups a while back, and he said they're already doing correction of errors for next Christmas.
Absolutely.
Teresa, we have to leave it there. Thank you for joining us. We're going to come right back and wrap up Saturday Morning Meeting next.
Cameron Smith & Associates is suppliers' first choice in recruiting the competitive Walmart supplier job market. We connect qualified candidates to CPG jobs in Northwest Arkansas and across the country. CSA also sources sales and marketing professionals for companies providing advertising, marketing, merchandising, and data management services to suppliers. Contact us today at csarecruiters.com.
Today's show has been sponsored in part by 8th and Walton, the premier destination for Walmart supplier education. 8th and Walton offers a variety of services including new supplier onboarding, scorecard optimization, and analysis and reporting. Visit 8thandwalton.com/services to learn more.
As always, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. Now, if you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Please join us next week when our featured guest will be Cameron Smith, CEO of Cameron Smith & Associates, a supplier recruiting firm here in Northwest Arkansas.